Hey everyone, today we are checking out the Pixel 9 Pro Fold and the Pixel 9 Pro XL. So we are going to do a camera comparison to see how pro is the Pixel 9 Pro Fold in terms of its cameras. So let's hop straight into Lightroom to check out some photos. So the first set of pictures here is shot on the ultra wide. On the left we have the Pixel 9 Pro XL. On the right is the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. I'm just gonna call one the XL and one the Fold because the names are too damn long. So let's take a look here. So if we zoom in to the center here, we see that the photos look practically identical. So they're both shot on the 12 megapixel output. So this is the default settings. I didn't change anything here. It does look like maybe the XL is slightly more detailed. It could be because the XL has the 50 megapixel sensor, whereas the Fold has the 48 megapixel sensor. So those extra megapixels may have given it some additional details when it downsamples to 12 megapixels here. But other than that, they look pretty similar to me. You're not going to see that once you zoom back out. If we just zoom to 100%, so this is 100% crop here, you basically can't tell the difference at all. If we zoom into the corners of the shadows here, we do see some more noise on the Fold image compared to the XL image, just a smidge more noise. See the shirt on this person here, there's a bit more noise. But yeah, at 12 megapixels, practically identical. This is shot on the main lens or the main sensor. So we have the XL on the left and the Fold on the right. So let's zoom in to 100% here. Again, looks practically identical to me. So let's zoom in further to see how this goes. So again, I think there is slightly more detail in the XL image here. Those pieces of wood there seem like they're a bit more detailed. It seems a little bit blurrier on the Fold. Only the slightest bit really. They look practically identical here. They look very close. So again, this is 12 megapixels. So this is the downsampling of the sensors, and they look basically the same to me. The XL is slightly sharper, but other than that, yeah, practically identical. So I guess it is right. I guess they're both Pro phones, I guess, in this case. So let's check out the corners. Let's check out the shadowy areas here. So looks very similar. The noise looks similar to me. Yeah, there's basically no discernible difference to my eye here. So let's choose another picture. So XL on the left and then the Fold on the right. So this is the telephoto lens, the 5x zoom. So let's zoom into this Wonk logo here. 100% zoom here. The color seems to be slightly different. I think this one's a bit maybe more pinkish magenta-ish. The W is supposed to be white, I believe. So let's zoom in a bit to the W here. Again, they look practically identical. So again, this is the 12 megapixel shot here. So nothing in RAW. This is just straight open the camera, switch to the 5x and snap a shot. And they both look identical to me. Let's check out the corners here. Again, maybe the XL is slightly sharper here on the leaves. This is, slightly blurrier, but there's not much to it, to be honest. So this is shot using the RAW feature on both phones. So actually, the left one is the RAW image from the Fold. The right one is the JPEG that it outputs at the same time. So let's compare the JPEGs first. So let me get the right photo here. So here we go. So they are both the JPEGs that the phone produced. So the XL on the left, the Fold on the right. So let's zoom in. This is 100%. So the zoom level is not the same because the XL outputs a much larger file compared to the Fold. So let's take a look if we zoom into the same level. So let's zoom into the tower here and we'll just fill it in the frame here, and then we'll do the same for the Fold. They look pretty much the same. I think the Fold looks better, strangely enough. Maybe the Fold is actually doing some additional sharpening, which we might actually not want. So here we see that the image is actually breaking down a bit because the Fold is shooting at a lower resolution. So the XL, I believe, is doing a bit better because it's high resolution. You can see that, you know, it is a bit blurry, but you know, you can't see the individual pixels. But on the Fold, you can see that it's actually breaking down already. You can actually see the jaggedness of the image, whereas on the XL, you can zoom in a lot more before you start seeing individual pixels. All right, let's take a look at the raw images here. So we're going to put the raw image from the XL on the left and the raw image from the Fold on the right. So let's zoom in and take a look here. So obviously that's a bit too much for the Fold. It's already seeing the individual pixels because the Fold doesn't do the 50 megapixel stills. But if we zoom out a bit so that we have the tower in the middle, let's zoom out a bit, tower in the middle, the XL looks softer overall. So again, I saw this with the Pixel 8 comparison as well. The Pixel 9 seems to be producing a softer image. So this is the raw file. So there should be very little or no processing at all. And we see that overall the XL image is softer, whereas the Pixel Fold image seems to be producing a sharper looking image. If anyone knows why, let me know in the comments, because I am not sure why. All right, moving on to another raw shot here. So this is shot on the main sensor on both phones. So the XL on the left and the Fold on the right. Now at this zoom level, they look practically identical to me. So if we zoom in 100% on both, we see that obviously you can zoom in more on the XL because it's a high resolution sensor at 50 megapixels. If we look at the one on the right in the same area, if we zoom into the same level as the one that is on the XL, we see the image start to break down. So obviously we have less pixels to work with. We can start seeing the individual pixels sooner compared to on the higher resolution image here. So there is always the advantage of having the higher resolution here. I think in this case, because the images look so similar, the XL, you know, wins by default because it just has the higher resolution sensor. In terms of color and detail, I think they are practically identical. The only difference, I think, is the higher resolution sensor on the XL. Let's move on. So this is the ultra wide. This is the raw image shot from the XL ultra wide and also the Fold ultra wide. At this zoom level, they look pretty much the same. I did notice that the color temperature is a bit different. So these buildings here are more yellow on the XL and these are a bit more white on the Fold. So let's zoom into those buildings there. And it looks like, I mean, obviously again, you can zoom in a lot more on the XL because of the higher resolution sensor, but otherwise they look pretty similar to me. If we try to zoom into the same level, obviously the image breaks down because we don't have the pixels to play with here on the Fold. But if we zoom into a resolution that the Fold can keep up with, they look pretty similar. Besides the color temperature being slightly off, they both look pretty respectable, I would say. Let's look at the leaves here. Again, at this zoom level, I think there is more detail in the XL image, and that could just be down to the fact that it has more resolution to play with. But in terms of, you know, the quality of the image, if we look at it back at this zoom level, they look practically identical to me. The only difference is really the color temperature here. The dynamic range looks pretty similar to me. We can see the details in the building here, so that's nicely exposed. We can also look at the shadows as well. So if we look at the shadowy area in the trees here, we get the detail there too. So the dynamic range seems to be pretty similar, at least to my eye, across these two images. Really, again, the only difference I can see is, the resolution. The XL has high resolution. You can zoom in more before the image breaks down, whereas the Fold doesn't. And yeah, the XL seems to be producing the warmer image here. All right, let's move on to some night shots. So here we have the image on the left, the XL, and the image on the right, which is the Fold. Again, the XL seems to be producing the warmer image here, almost a yellowy green tint, whereas the Fold seems to be having the more neutral kind of looking colors. So it was much darker when I shot this photo, and the photos look brighter than what it was in real life because it automatically kicked into night mode for this shot. So let's zoom in, and this time I think they are both at 12 megapixels. So yes, I left them at 12 megapixels, and let's take a look at this image. So again, they look pretty similar, besides the fact that the color is a bit different. They look so similar here. I think some detail may have been lost here in the Fold image here, these leaves, whereas the XL image seems to have retained a bit more detail in these far off distance leaves. Let's look at the dark area here on the right. So here, again, very, very similar. Noise also looks very similar. I think the Fold is slightly worse than the XL. So the XL seems to be a tiny bit better in terms of the detail that it retains, but I do like the color of the Fold. The color that it produces on the Fold seems to be nicer to the eye, but of course you can tweak the colors in post. Alright, so let's move on to our next comparison photo here. So this is shot on the ultra wide at night time. So this is a night shot in ultra wide, so the XL on the left and the Fold on the right. I think straight away we can tell that the Fold is not as good. It's noisier in this area down the bottom here, as you can see. The XL seems to have better noise control here. There's definitely a lot of grain on this wall, on this paint here. Let's look at the sign in the middle. The sign is okay, but you see the area above the sign, there's a lot more grain and noise here compared to a smoother kind of gradient for the XL. So yeah, definitely night photos is where we start to see the Fold break down a little bit here, especially on the secondary lenses like the ultra wide here. All right, so this is the telephoto shot at nighttime. So the Fold didn't actually let me choose the telephoto. I think it's doing a crop into the main sensor, whereas the XL did allow me to switch to telephoto. So if we zoom into this bright area here, I do think that the Fold image on the right is slightly blurrier than the image on the left, which is from the actual telephoto. Although they still look pretty similar, considering that this is a crop into the main sensor for the Fold. They look pretty comparable here. So let's look at the flag. The flag is more well defined, I think, on the XL shot here, and then the Fold shot, it's a bit more blurry. I think that's because it was a crop into the main sensor, but the differences are not that huge. If you zoom right back out, they look pretty similar. Obviously the color of the sky is a bit different. I do think the sky is maybe a bit more noisy in the XL image on the left here. Or it could just be down to the fact that the Fold decided to keep the sky dark, whereas the XL wanted to brighten up the sky more, hence revealing the noise a bit more on the left image here. So yeah, despite cropping into the main sensor, the Fold seems to be doing alright for this night telephoto shot. There's not too much in terms of difference that I can see here. The XL does have a slight edge, obviously, but the edge is not as much as I thought it would be. Alright, moving on to a raw image shot on the XL and the Fold at nighttime with the main sensor. So if we look at the main sensor shot here, if we zoom in, So let's look at just look at the car here. We'll try and fill the car. The XL shot is obviously a little bit better because of the higher resolution. We can zoom in a bit more. But again, it's producing a warmer image. So you see the wall here is yellow, whereas the wall here on the Fold image is more white compared to the other image here. If we zoom all the way out, they look pretty similar. The flare control on the XL seems to be a little bit better, whereas the Fold seems to be having a more violet looking flare here on the top left, whereas the XL seems to have controlled that a bit more, or it's just showing a different colored flare. So this is kind of more blue, so it's hiding it with the dark sky, whereas this is because it's more violet, more reddish color. You can see that a bit more, but otherwise they both look pretty similar. If we zoom all the way out, you probably can't tell. The only difference really is the color temperature that the phones are choosing here. So moving on to a telephoto shot here, this time I managed to get the Fold to switch to its telephoto lens, and it looks like it may have brightened this image a little bit too much. The XL seems to be happy to keep the dark areas dark, whereas the Fold seems to have brightened up everything. So look at this part of the building here, it's quite bright compared to how that looks on the XL. So if we zoom into that portion here, you see that, you know, it's brightened up this a lot more, whereas the XL was happy to keep it as is. The Fold seems to have done a bit more noise reduction, I believe. In this case, I think I do prefer the XL image here a little bit more than the one that the Fold is producing. The Fold seems to be trying to brighten up the image a little bit too much for this kind of night shot. Alright, so this is another raw image that is shot with the ultra wide. Again, it was not this bright when I shot it. This is the phone's brightening it up with the automatic night sight. They both look pretty good, to be honest. The flare is a bit different from these two phones. So this is the Fold. It looks like it's letting it flare quite a lot, whereas the XL doesn't seem to be flaring as much. There's more of a blooming kind of area here, whereas the Fold is having those kind of almost like sun stars, not quite sun stars, on the image here on the Fold. Noise wise, let's look at the dark sky. I think the noise is worse on the Fold. The noise seems to be a lot better on the XL, so it seems to have a nicer pattern to it, whereas the Fold is kind of blotchy a bit. But if we zoom all the way out, then yeah, they both look pretty good. So let's take a look at the leaves here. Again, the leaves look pretty comparable. I would say they're practically identical, besides the difference in resolution between the two images, because the Fold has a lower resolution image. But otherwise, they both look pretty comparable. So yeah, the ultra wide on the XL is definitely a bit better. So you see the image breaking down a bit here in the middle of the shot, and that doesn't seem to happen nearly as much on the XL. So yeah, so night photos is where the XL is starting to shine a bit more. Alright, so that's my photo comparison between the Pixel 9 Pro Fold and the Pixel 9 Pro XL. So I do think that the XL has the slight advantage when it comes to photos. Of course, it has the higher resolution, but where it really shines is in the night photos. So if you take a lot of low light shots or night photos, the XL is the one to go. Now, is the 9 Pro Fold worthy of the title of a Pro phone? In terms of its photo capability, I definitely think so. During the day, I would say that there's practically no difference between these two cameras besides the resolution. Especially if you only shoot with the main camera, then yeah, the 9 Pro Fold is worthy of the Pro title. But overall, the XL is still the stronger camera for photos. I will be doing a video comparison, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, I hope this is useful, and thanks for watching.